The Annapolis Book Festival.
We are here with Antony Marra right now, and this is our last live of the day. And you are the keynote as well, right?
That's what we were told.
We were told you were the keynote.
Well, then I guess I am.
He's the keynote.
He's the
maybe. We don't know.
We're not sure.
He didn't get a fancy button or anything, so it's sus.
We do know he's the author of this book here, Mercury Pictures Presents. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk to you a little bit about this, and you have two other books. And so thank you so much for coming on and meeting with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so. I'm not sure if you all know out there, but you guys have been doing this for like
2 years,
10 hours today.
Yes.
Like,
we were here very early.
We got here.
Arrived this morning, and yes,
we set up. Tom set up.
I'm tired.
We watched Tom set up.
Yeah.
Because if we tried to help Tom set up, he said, "Don't touch that."
He has a system,
and that part of that system is us not being here.
Yes.
a key part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a lot of extroverting. Like, I feel like even Molly's hard at this point, and she is our extrovert. Like,
I pulled her out of the dinner last night.
What it is, I think, like, so I'm a very introverted person as well, and I think like one of the reasons that I've gravitated towards writing as a field is that I can just sort of lock myself in.
Yeah. Well, your invisible friends talk to you.
Exactly.
But then
I love my imaginary friends. They're freaking awesome.
But then how dare they? Your publisher's like, but you also have to go market this. Go do the things.
But I already gave you the product.
I gave you the book.
Why do you want more of me?
So a little bit of information about Antony Marra. He is the New York Times bestselling author of The Tsar of Love and Techno, and which is
such a wild name. I love it. Every time I hear it, I giggle a little bit. It's awesome.
And a constellation of vital phenomena. You are longlisted for a National Book Award, which is amazing, and winner of the National Book Critics Circle's John Leonard Prize. Wow, that's a mouthful. As well as Anisfield? How do I say it? I don't know. Sure, the Wolf Book Award in fiction. His latest novel is Mercury Pictures Presents, which is actually the book that Molly and I read, and it is historical fiction.
I know your favorite.
I know.
Your favorite.
She is not
genre.
a fan of.
You know what's really funny? So you are the fifth author we've interviewed today. Addison was historical fiction. Anthony's historical fiction. Cece was historical fiction. So of
Nina
the five,
was too, and she didn't make it.
We had a sixth one who's out sick. So of the books, 3 of the 5 were
historical. I can only apologize to you on my and my colleagues.
The rest are my fault. I picked most of them.
I mean, I'm totally fine with it. I'll read whatever Molly picks. Sometimes I'll complain about it. But, it's fine. There's more to this book than history.
Yes.
And also, it's Hollywood is the backdrop, which is like
super
really
interesting.
Cool. Really cool.
Super interesting. It's a really interesting choice, especially for the setting.
Yeah.
And the time frame.
Yeah.
I think that like settings, I don't know, I'm curious what you think as a fellow writer. Like, I feel like the setting determines so much of the book in terms of like the possibilities.
It does. Well, and it can
tone.
It can set your tempo even.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you write with music, or you're a writer that writes by doing research, it really depends, and it sets the tempo. Like, I instantly will go to music. I go to media from that time frame. I have a book that I haven't finished. It's about bootlegging and in Vermont, and how they created this hotel to bootleg out of. But I did all this research about it, and I started listening to music from that time frame, and that set the pace for how my characters just related in life. Yeah. And it's a very interesting path, because you have a very interesting tone in here. It's a very interesting tone. Honestly, I thought they were short stories that you put together.
So, do you want to give us a synopsis of your book before we start diving in a little bit further?
Yeah.
Just tell us what your book is about.
Yeah, so it's called Mercury Pictures Presents, and it is set in Los Angeles and Italy, but mostly Los Angeles. In the 1930s and 40s, and it's set in this sort of B movie studio called Mercury Pictures that becomes the sort of the nexus for this community of European refugees who moved to California in that era. And it focuses primarily on a character named Maria, who is I imagined her as like Rosalind Russell's character in His Girl Friday, only a bit more salty and a lot more.
Yeah,
I get
she's
that
salty. You got the salty.
Yeah.
Very salty.
She's
very
and she has
salty.
reason to be salty,
Yeah,
my
for
girl.
sure.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this this wide-ranging book that looks at all of these characters who've come from across Europe, across the world, and end up in this one ramshackle studio when World War II begins.
It's a wonderful hodgepodge of how.
Wonderful hodgepodge. I feel like put that on the cover.
Yeah, a wonderful hodgepodge.
Yeah.
Because there are so many storylines you don't think they're going to intertwine, but they just magically.
Yeah.
You just have to wait for it.
Yeah, I love that sense as a reader when you're reading a novel and you can feel the these all of these parts that shouldn't go together and that seem like they're kind of just flapping in the breeze, and yet they gradually entwine and sort of weave a tapestry. I love that feeling.
Yeah.
And I mean, you literally stop in the middle of a paragraph and flash back to Italy and then come back to Hollywood. It's like
it's like a memory.
In paragraphs. Like it's happening.
It's like a memory
at the same time. Yeah. And I mean that's how we think, right? I mean that's you're living your life. You flash back. You're right back to where you were. So. I thought I think old Hollywood is awesome for a backdrop. It's just a great story to tell, and there's so much history there.
Yeah.
And there's another book right now that we've read that
is doing well.
Evelyn Hugo,
which is number 3 download, right? By the way,
yeah.
It goes to the first episode, Jurassic Park gang and Evelyn Hugo.
Yeah,
I don't know why, y'all.
What
Why?
Are you? What?
We'll talk about this letter gang, but
why?
Why?
Hold on, you have an episode on Jurassic Park?
We do, and it's like fighting for first place constantly.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, it goes our first episode, our first book fight. Jurassic Park,
Evelyn Hugo and
then
Jurassic
Evelyn
Park
Hugo
are like fighting,
and they're in different seasons.
Because like I wouldn't have thought that there would be a mini crossover readers.
It's
right.
Yeah.
It's right. I think it's more of our personalities in that those episodes. I've re-listened to both. We're talking about our personal lives. We're bouncing back and forth. We're talking about the potential of, in Evelyn Hugo, it's the potential of a movie or a show, right? And in Jurassic Park, we're doing a comparison contrast of the books. How we interpreted the books from the movies, because we grew up with the movies.
English homework for them.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Hold on. So what was your verdict on Jurassic Park the book?
I loved the movies growing up. Like that was like I'm graduated in
Dinosaurs.
2000, so like
Yeah.
mid 90s. That was a movie, right?
I was in middle school when it came out, so yeah.
But the book, my issue with it is it's both too long. And also so good at giving you all the in-depth information.
Yeah.
Like I loved all the science talk in it. I loved all the math talk in it.
See,
math is not my
the
thing,
math
but
goes over,
science was my thing.
My eyes glaze over.
All of the chaos theory.
Like I'm good with the death and the murder and the crazy animals, but as soon as you start putting infographics in there,
Murder over math.
Yeah.
Murder over math from Ollie.
I mean, I ask in part because I want this episode to so if we can ride the coattails of the Jurassic Park, but also like Michael Crichton was like maybe my gateway author as I was born in '84 and so like Jurassic Park like the like that was a huge book for me and I just remember as a kid like I devoured every single book of his when it came out.
That was Good Omens for me in middle school. I opened Good Omens and I saw Neil Gaiman's writing style and I go, this is what I'm doing with my life.
Yeah.
I didn't really like Good Omens. We had an episode on that too.
So why tell a war story in Hollywood?
Well, so I think that we've all probably read far too many World War II novels, right?
That's a thing.
And that's why I don't like historical fiction, because I'm always like, it doesn't add anything. Like, this is the same thing. A lot of historical romance, right? The woman on the cover with walking away. Why is that always a thing?
Yeah.
Right. Give us a face.
Yeah. Exactly. No. And I feel similarly. I mean, you can't walk into a bookstore without tripping over a stack of novels set in World War II. And yet I had never sort of seen a novel about the role that Hollywood played in sort of selling the war to the public.
And they did.
The propaganda that was produced, the ways in which Hollywood and the military sort of worked together, and it just sort of seemed like this fascinating sort of part of the Venn diagram of two worlds that people know very well, Hollywood and World War II, but yet this intersection seemed perhaps less well known, and so it felt like a really colorful but also maybe slightly unknown part of both of those histories.
And it's some really great political commentary too, because you've got the studio is being the people who are actually making the movies are mostly immigrants, and they were being told that they had curfews and they weren't allowed to do certain things, and yet they're making movies about why you should support the war effort because the Nazis are doing that. They're telling people they can't do these things. So it's like that that duality that like this is our reality, but we have to tell people that this is not the reality. This is what they're doing over there. It's what the bad guys are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that World War II. One of the reasons I think it's so like mythologized in American culture is because it was maybe the last war where we were on like the good side.
Yeah, like we were the good guys.
We were the good guys. But I think one of the effects of that is that maybe we gloss over the ways in which we behaved quite reprehensibly.
Poorly,
towards towards immigrants and refugees.
I mean,
who were
we had a variation of concentration camps in Alabama, internment camps.
Yeah.
George Takei.
There's a whole documentary about it. Actually,
he was in the internment camp.
It's devastating.
So and along that, so there's a lot of different races and ethnicities that are being overlooked in Hollywood currently. That's still happening. And this year, actually, the Oscar race, we had 3 winners that were East Asian descent. So they won Best Actors. So I keep thinking about this in terms of like Eddie's story, who's one of the characters. He's Asian, he's American born. So do you think Hollywood is working towards more inclusion? Do you think that's happening?
So Eddie is a third generation Chinese American Californian, and he's the only main character who in the novel who's actually born in America. But because and he works as an actor, but because of the typecasting and pervasive racism that was certainly felt throughout Hollywood at the time, and in many ways extends to the present day. He only can get these roles playing big characters and these sort of
the bad guy.
Bad guy, exactly. And when America enters the war,
it just gets worse.
Yeah, he's suddenly given this opportunity to sort of have larger roles playing Japanese villains, and he sort of feels this real sense of moral paradox, where on the one hand he wants something out of this industry that has overlooked and marginalized him
and treated him terribly,
and he has this one moment where he has a bit of leverage, but the cost of that is to is in some ways to sell his soul.
And he's not even Japanese.
No.
And nobody seems to care.
No.
Well, you're Asian, so that's good enough.
Yeah.
And there's that angst that he's feeling like, I'm making really good money, but at what cost?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm selling my soul
literally
to do this.
Yeah. And I think that one of the values. So I'm going to make a pitch to you for the value of historical fiction.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
You're going to sell me.
Good luck. I'm going to sit back because I wish you luck because I've been doing this. I have been friends with this woman since 2009.
Well,
and I've been trying to get her reading historical fiction.
To be fair,
so,
my favorite book is historical fiction.
Doesn't count. That is a classic. It doesn't count.
It does.
It doesn't count.
How dare you?
You heard me.
So my pitch for historical fiction is that oftentimes I think historical fiction that novelists working in that genre they are describing the period in which their books are written as much as the period in which their books are set.
That's fair.
And I think that by looking at the past, at trying to experience it in narrative form, it gives us maybe a way to contextualize and better understand what we're going through in the present, and to see some of the obstacles and divisions and political ruptures that we are experiencing today as part of a continuum in American history.
I think that's totally valid because
But you still hate it.
No, it's not that.
No.
So my favorite book is To Kill a Mockingbird, which was written in the 1960s but set in the 40s.
Fine.
And that's exactly what Harper Lee was
Technically,
doing.
it's historical fiction.
It is historical fiction.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's exactly what she was trying to do. She saw what was happening in the 60s, in the South particularly. She was a person that grew up in the 40s in the South. And she created these characters that were basically based on small town life in the South and segregation and what would happen. She was making political commentary about today.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I love that book is because it's still relevant.
Yeah.
And I used to be a teacher before I became a librarian. I was a high school teacher, and I taught in the middle of West Tampa. I had gangs in my classroom. I had kids that said, I've never finished a book before. And we read To Kill a Mockingbird together. And to watch them get so upset about Tom Robinson's conviction and be like, talking about the justice system and the way that it's still inequitable. And these are like high school kids. Like, that is why I deeply love that book. So, to be fair, my usual complaint with historical fiction is that I don't like when it's just a regurgitation of the same thing. And I don't think that's what this is.
No.
I don't think
this is a very original take on World War II.
Absolutely.
A very original take on World War II.
And the same thing with Addison Armstrong, who we interviewed earlier. Her book, The War Librarian, is a totally different look at librarianship, at being
World War
a woman
II?
in the military,
Or World War?
World War I. Like,
Mixing
when
things
you're
up
going to
now.
add to the genre, then I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it, okay?
Yeah.
So this is different, so I can be okay with it.
So since we're talking about research and all that, what was that like for you for this book?
Well, one of the great things about writing a book set in old Hollywood is you can sit on the couch watching a bunch of movies from the era and call it work.
Yeah, it's awesome, right?
It was
Quality
a very painful research
I
process.
bet. I bet it was hard
It
took days.
Days
And months. It was awful. I'm sure your family hates you for it.
Yeah. No, it was. I think that for me, one of the most pleasurable parts of being a writer is that you can kind of become an amateur expert on whatever you're interested in.
Yeah.
I'm an expert on bootlegging now.
Yeah.
And particularly in Vermont.
So, funny side story. When I started doing that research, I reached out to the Vermont Historical Society. And they had like this pamphlet book, and it was like $15. I ordered it by mail. I today still get Vermont Historical Society monthly mail.
Wow.
On cardstock.
They really want her to finish the book.
They really they
really
really
want that.
just need donations. So
Yeah.
Vermont Life, donate to them. But it's funny how we get research and how it just takes us in a direction, because that this time was movies, but next time you may be, stuck neck deep in books for, months.
Maybe on the Vermont bootleg.
Yeah.
He's
like, this is a great idea.
If he publishes that, we're pulling up the receipt.
Yeah.
Here's your idea first.
He's like, it's brilliant. And it's yours.
No, I kept thinking about my favorite movie, which is Singing in the Rain. The whole time I was listening to the audiobook.
I was going to say Win a Date with Tad Hamilton, but...
Well, no. That is not my favorite movie. That is I've had a really crappy week movie.
Gotcha.
It's garbage. I don't know why I like it. But, Singing in the Rain, it's that iconic Hollywood backdrop, right?
Yeah.
It's the start of the talkies. And I just kept thinking about that being the insider knowledge of what gets made into movie. And that's really my knowledge of old Hollywood. Hollywood likes talking about themselves a lot, though. So
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's I find Hollywood just fascinating because I think oftentimes in when it's portrayed in novels, it's portrayed as fundamentally sort of frivolous, silly place.
Yeah.
And yet I think by looking at how representation occurs, not just in terms of casting, but how America is represented on the screen. How this sort of image, this sort of like larger cultural image of what what Hollywood thinks we should value and what it thinks we should believe in. That it tells us so much about who how America sees itself, what we aspire to be, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that like looking at Hollywood is a way of kind of looking at the country at large.
Yeah, I agree. And along those lines, you weave together stories. A lot of it is fiction, but there are real life Hollywood actors that are in your book, like Bella.
Yeah.
Bella.
So Hungarian, I'm Hungarian, so I was like, yes, represent. but what made you decide to include some of the real Hollywood stars?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a huge Bela Lugosi fan, and I find him to be like kind of this really tragic figure in many ways.
It is.
Where he wants to he imagined himself like being this heartthrob.
Yeah.
And partially because of his accent. He wasn't able to be cast in any of those roles, but it also was in part because he was freaking Dracula. Like
it's hard to come back from that.
Yes.
Yeah. And
once you're typecast, you're typecast.
Yeah, and so he was like perennially this monster, and he had the opportunity to play Frankenstein, and he turned the role down because.
I get that.
Yeah, he didn't want. He wanted to not be a monster.
Hey, are you sure you just wasn't trying to hold out for the universe in which Frankenstein fought Dracula, like the extended horror movie universe?
I mean, we've got Alien versus Predator. Why not Dracula versus
Freddy versus Jason? Dracula versus Frankenstein. It's fine.
Well, they did. They teamed up in later movies in the 40s.
There you go. See, he was holding out.
Yeah, but he so he is a figure that I think like we know so well, but but his actual life is just fast. Anyway, so he and Eddie are friends.
Yeah.
Right.
And they have this sort of like afternoon together where they're kind of just discussing like what it's life and careers and what it means to sort of represent villains and what that does, like how that sort of corrodes your own your own psyche.
Yeah. And was he actually buried in his cape?
He was, yeah.
I couldn't find it. I was like, I want to fact check this. And I was like, and I couldn't find it. But I that stuck with me. I was like, he was buried in his cape.
Yeah, he had a good sense of humor.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So you have very distinct voices in this. Like, each character is very distinct and could have carried the story on their own. Why did you choose to go multiple point of views?
I think that as a reader and as a writer, I love the idea of books, of novels being these big, sort of capacious places where many different lives can intersect and come together, and we can see how, just these tapestries of life get built, and I think that. Were I to tell this particular story, which is about this wide cast of immigrants coming from all over to this one place, if I were to just tell it through one point of view or two or three points of view, I think it would have really you wouldn't have gotten that sense of all of these different backgrounds and all
sense.
of this trauma and hope and whatever.
It's definitely the stories you do not think about when you think of World War II. When we think about World War II, we think Holocaust, we think people on the front lines, right? You're talking about people who were making media for the front. You're talking about miniaturists. Never thought about that. No. I never thought about somebody would literally need to make miniatures to... I mean, she ends up going to where they're building the atomic bomb. Yeah. And I'm just like... This is so fascinating.
Yeah, so this is another one of these characters who, were this to be a novel with a single point of view, she probably would have been relegated very much to the sideline. Yeah. She's a character named Anna, and she's a miniaturist, and she becomes involved in this real project called German Village, which was this sort of essentially a life-size Berlin neighborhood that was built in the Utah desert in order to essentially try to figure out how to create a firestorm in Berlin. Yeah. And and it's one of these sort of little sort of historical nuggets that I'd never seen fictionalized and felt.
And she's not just a flat character. It's not just she's a miniaturist. We get more of her. We get that she's a German immigrant. We get the story of her son and her ex-husband. There's so much more than just she's building miniatures. Mm-hmm. And you're right. That can't be accomplished if you don't have those multiple POVs.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really... the miniaturist really got to me. I thought, that is such... I never even think about people doing that. And, like, I'm obsessed with Star Wars. Of course there are miniaturists. Yeah. Like, of course.
Yeah.
Like duh.
Duh. Yeah. How do you think they built the Death Star?
Duh.
So who came first? Who was talking to you first in this book?
It was Maria who is the.
She is the strongest voice.
She is.
She is your strongest voice.
She is as much of a main character as the book has. And she, she's this sort of tough, irreverent driver.
She's so, and I'm saying this not to be negative, cold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
she has to be.
She has to be cold, and the coldness of her makes her more real to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't write cold, distant characters.
Mm-hmm.
We want our characters to be liked. We write our characters to be wanted so that they're talked about. And you purposely wrote her unlikable. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? She puts people off. She talks hard to them.
But you know what? Sorry, I'm going to have a side conversation here. I don't think you would say that about her if she was a man.
Facts.
She has to be a woman.
Yep.
Because if she comes in like a boss.
Yep.
And she's a man, that's a whole different character.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different character.
It's brilliant.
So.
And that's what you're getting, though. That's the point of this, though. Yeah. It's brilliant.
She's earned her place. She deserves the pay. She deserves the producer credit.
Not to be Jane Doe.
And I feel like she's a character who's constantly having to come up against the sort of the structural sexism that existed.
Structural sexism, I like that.
Yes.
In Hollywood and in America.
Life.
In general.
Yeah.
And she was actually the character that I got to draw on my own family from the most. So her three great aunts, Mimi, Lala, and Pep, are based on and named after my own great aunts.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and the restaurant where they work is my cousin's restaurant.
I love this.
So I feel like we all have a gaggle of aunts like that who are just constantly always talking over each other.
Well, mine are Hungarian, but yes.
Mine just
very similar.
Mine were more raised voices, but
yeah, that's really cool. And how did they feel about being in your book?
Well, they I had these three great aunts, Mimi, Lala, and Pep. They came from a family. They were three of 9 or 10, including my grandfather. And of that generation, half of them died in childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Essentially, all of them just received the names of older siblings who had passed away.
Wow.
So that's kind of how they dealt with death. Is you just pass the name on to the next one.
Well, that's one way to do it.
So when I was writing this book, I knew that I was going to base these aunts on my own, and the last of them, Mimi, passed away as I was writing this, and I realized that just as they had received their names from older sisters who had passed away, these characters would receive their names from them.
And somebody will use it.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna see, oh, that's a cute name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And use it. And they'll live on somewhere else in the world because
and
of your
they'll live
book.
on here.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they live on because
I like that.
Book characters are real characters.
Oh yeah, we talk about that a lot. They're real to us. So, okay, longlisted for National Book Award.
Yeah.
Winner of still can't say the word Wolf Book Award.
Didn't change in the last 20 minutes.
John Lennon. That's what I said. John Lennon Prize. Good for you.
I thought he was dead, so congrats.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. This
good.
is so unprofessional. So how does it feel to have people honor your work like that?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's awful, right? Gosh, why would they?
you work on a book largely, you know, locked in your room alone, and you're not sure if anybody is going to read it, let alone if anybody's going to like it. And so obviously, you know, to have readers who, you know, seem to, you know, to react positively.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I mean, it's a dream come true. It's the best.
It's smart. Yeah. It's a smart book.
It is. It's smarter than me. There were times I was like, I don't know if I have the educational background for this.
I love you, Molly. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, obviously that's what you want, right? You want people to receive it well, but you want critics to receive it well. You want, I mean, look at all of these people that have blurbed your book. I mean, that's what you want. But at the same time, you know, are you allowed to like actually say that you want that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I think everybody wants, you know.
I mean, we all want published. Yeah. We all want to be on time.
We want someone to sponsor our podcast.
Seriously. Hashtag Audible, not sponsored. So I listened to the audiobook. Did you get to pick your narrators?
So my publisher, the audio department, presented me with 3 or 4 possibilities. It needed to be somebody who could do all the. They did an excellent job.
There was all the accents, the voices. It was spectacular.
Yeah, and so the narrator is actually is I believe a dual citizen.
Yeah.
Italian and
cool.
American, and
she was brilliant.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
She's brilliant.
She can do all of the you know, all the
She
pronunciation.
was really good. It was really good.
What was great is because there are a lot of characters in this book. I mean, there are a lot. I need an audiobook narrator who can give me a voice for each one of them, so I don't forget who it is that I'm listening, that you're talking about. That's what I need. Yeah. She gave me that.
Yeah.
I could get that from her.
Yeah.
It was very distinct. Okay, it's this character. It's this character. You know. So. Yeah.
So who's your idol? Who do you chase? Because we all have one author that's like our keystone for the reason we started.
Yeah. So. I mean, besides Michael Crichton.
I was going to say
Mike Crichton.
No, I think it changes.
He's gone. He's passed. He's not writing anymore, so you can't chase him.
I think at different points, maybe you have different writers occupying that position. You know, somebody who I've greatly admired is over the years. You know, maybe the first one of the first writers of sort of like literary fiction that I really fell in love with was Edward P. Jones, who's a DC area writer, and is one I greatly admire. But it kind of, you know, on the one hand, I also love like Lee Child, you know. So I think it's like, you know, it varies times.
Intense,
yeah.
No, because it can inspire our mood and tempo and how we write, and so it's always interesting to see, you know. From time to time.
What are you reading right now?
Yeah.
What am I reading right now? So I am reading. What am I reading? Oh, so I.
Same. I don't know what I'm reading right now, honestly.
I just finished a book called Happiness Falls by Angie Kim.
Is it falls as in falling, or falls as in like the waterfalls?
Like waterfalls.
Got it.
It's coming out in September. She wrote Miracle Creek.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And it's absolutely.
Is it good?
It's so good. I'm a very slow reader, and I read this book in like 24 hours.
Dang.
It's this about this family in the midst of COVID. The father goes missing, and the only witness to this is the son, who has a developmental disability in which he has trouble talking.
Oh wow! Sold.
Yep.
And,
sold.
And so it's a book about like language and how you know, how we communicate. It's of all like the sort of pandemic set books. I feel like it uses aspects of the pandemic to like create this riveting plot. So like contract tracing becomes how like one person finds.
Oh, that's so cool.
Like the masks become a way for identities to be concealed.
Yeah.
And it just uses like these things that became part of our daily life during the pandemic.
Become part of a mystery portion.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
It's
That's
very
brilliant.
Yeah.
That
So
sounds brilliant. Well, we'll have to look out for it.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that one.
Do you have a favorite book?
I don't really have a favorite book, I don't think.
Usually when people ask me what my favorite book is, I'm like, I don't think you're ready for this conversation. I mean, I do have a favorite book, but...
We know what your favorite book is.
It is. For sure know what my favorite book is. But I read so much that I can never have a top 10. It's like a top whatever I'm reading right now. So
Depends on my mood, honestly.
But I've been reading a lot of romance novels lately.
You know, did you read... I read a couple of years ago, there's a book... I can't remember the name, but it's about Harper Lee's like last book, which was never published, but she spent like 40 years.
Are you talking about a book about that book or that book?
It's a book about her trying to write that book.
But I read Go Set a Watchman.
Okay, yeah. No, so this is about like a murder trial that she became obsessed with. It was this guy in is it Alabama? Is that where she's from?
Yeah.
Who essentially kept on like marrying people, and they kept dying, and he kept collecting the life insurance on them.
Yeah. Why did people keep marrying him?
It was like again and again and again and again, and finally
White man luck.
In the final whatever it was, like the 8th time he was tried for this, the brother of the victim in the courtroom just shot him.
No, that's amazing.
That's one way to handle it.
Justice was served.
Yeah, but she was like working on this book for 40 years or something. Anyway, you might get a kick out of it.
She never needed to publish again. She won a Pulitzer with her first book. She was kind of a recluse a little bit. She didn't need to publish another book. She was like, mic drop, I'm out. We probably would, in the publishing world today, I don't think she would have ever gotten away with that.
No.
They'd have been like, you have a deadline.
Get
it done.
Because they would have made her sign a 4-book deal.
Oh, for sure. Well, for sure. So, do you have anything else you want to share with us? Well, you have already done your panel.
I've done my panel.
Are you? Is this your first time here?
It's my first time here. I hope not my last. It's
us too.
That's what we feel.
Lovely event.
We're gonna, when we wrap up with you, we're gonna go over to the bookshop.
Yeah.
They have quite a few.
I don't know if my husband knows we're doing that, but that is what we're gonna do.
We appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. This was such a treat.
Yeah, love this. If you ever want to come back on again,
you're welcome.
You have our email.
Yeah.
Will do. Thank you.
Right. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. We are all done with live streaming.
Hasta luego.
And we hope you enjoyed. Thank you again, Anthony, for meeting with us. And we'll see you next week. Bye.